Hey, all my webheads out there, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. And fans, I'm your host, Mike Spider Slayer, getting ready to bring you another episode of After the Poll. Guys, this is the video series where I talk about some of my most highly anticipated comic books for the week and to see if they live up to the hype. And of course, guys, we do that top 5 countdown to see which one of my books is my favorite book as of right now. All right, guys, so before we get into it, I just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor, which is Mutant Beaver Comics.com. Guys, they just got a bunch of new exclusive variants that just dropped. So if you are into exclusive variant comic book covers, guys, check out Mutant Beaver Comics.com. They got excellent customer service, top-notch packaging, and guys, you won't be disappointed with the product when it arrives at your door. So if you want to save 10%, here's my promo code CORNER10, and not only can you save on today's purchase, but you can save on future purchases after that. So once again, MutantBeaverComics.com. So there we go, guys. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with this week's episode. Coming in at number 7, the first book we're going to be talking about is Savage Spider-Man. This is issue 1, and this is written by Joe Kelly, and the artwork in this book is actually done by Gerardo Sandoval, and I want to say it's the same artist that did like some Venom books in the past, because the art definitely looks very familiar. It has a very 90s vibe to it, and there really is like non-stop action in this book, and this is coming off the heels, from what I feel, of Non-Stop Spider-Man. And I actually stopped reading that book, and I didn't even realize that this book was a kind of a continuation of that, and I didn't realize it until I actually started reading the book. And this had a very familiar tone and feel to it when you read it, because there definitely is non-stop action and battling in this book. However, that was a hindrance for me when I read this. I did not find myself engaged in this story whatsoever. This was definitely a disappointment. I thought Savage Spider-Man, or the creature of Spider-Man, looked pretty cool, but as a new reader jumping onto this, I was kind of like, what am I reading? I have no idea what's happening, right? They give you a little brief description at the beginning of a comic book, but you have really no reason why to know that Spider-Man is the way that he is right now, why Baron Zemo is with him, if he's going to stay that way. There's these random characters that are in this book, and I felt myself completely lost. The only thing that was really cool about this book, again, was the pretty cool artwork, the awesome covers, and some of the other book, the other variant covers out there. But as a reader, there was nothing here that really interested me, and there was nothing at the end that said, hey, let's keep reading this. So unfortunately, this falls at that number 7 spot, and I don't know if I'm going to be reading this going forward. So definitely a disappointment. I don't recommend this unless you want to buy some cool covers. Coming in at number 6, this goes to the Fantastic Four Reckoning War. This is issue 1. Now, this is the other Marvel event that's going on. We got Devil's Reign, and now we got the Fantastic Four Reckoning War. And when you read this issue, this is taking place throughout the entire Marvel universe, because literally everybody and their mother is in this comic book. Dan Slott is the writer of this book. Carlos Pacheco is the artist, and I thought that the artwork in this book was really good, because again, every single Marvel character is in this book, so you have your choice in which characters you want to really spend time studying and looking at to see how they're drawn. The colors really pop in this book, and so it is a really nice book to look at. There's just characters all over the place. Now, the story, on the other hand, was a lot. So if you have not read Dan Slott's Fantastic Four, you're not going to be completely lost, but they definitely overwhelm you, and it's going to make you feel like you're going to need to read Fantastic Four in order to understand this, but you really don't. The problem with this book is they throw all these different angles at you, right? There's a big, huge event that happens right from the start of this book. And from there on out, it just does not stop. but the amount of times that they explained what the Reckoning War is and the tools that they use to destroy their enemies, it was very repetitive, and there was just so much going on from the opening act to the closing act. It was just absolutely insane and bonkers. But the one cool thing that you do get out of this is that Reed Richards now basically sees everything. I guess he's kind of like a watcher now, which I thought was actually kind of cool because he needed to find out all the information of the Reckoning War. But again, when you're finding out this information, you're rereading it over and over again. So you read it from the beginning, Reed Richards explains it. It's just like Dan Slott wants you to make sure what the Reckoning War is. So this is a very dialogue heavy book. If you're not into Dan Slott's writing, I don't know if you're going to be into this. This could be a little bit overwhelming for you, but remember, it's the alpha issue, and it's going to be continued in future issues, and it probably won't be maybe as dialogue heavy, and there's going to be lots of action. But when you look at character-wise, you can expect Nick Fury, known as the Unseen now, to be one of the major players in this book, and something definitely happens to the Watcher in this book as well. So you're going to have to read it to find out for yourself. This is kind of like a take it or leave it type of book. If you're not fond of Dan Slott's writing and you have a bad track record with him, this is a skip. But if you want to see how this thing turns out, you might want to try it. So I'm going to keep reading it, and I'm going to see where it goes. So now we move into the top 5 category, and number 5 goes to Noctera. This is issue 7. Now, this has been away for a while. We did get the Blacktop Bill special without Tony S. Daniel artwork, but now we get the return of Tony S. Daniel and the return of Val Riggs, right? And so it's about this apocalyptic event that is called the PM. It's been 14 years, and we have all these people on Earth trying to fight for their survival. You need an extensive amount of light to keep these creatures at bay, and if there's darkness around you, well, what's going to happen is you're also going to be consumed by the PM, and you're going to become one of these shade creatures. This book's pretty good to always look at. I love looking at it, like I said, and what this story had to offer for its fans, being that it's the return, is kind of like a catch-up point. What the event was, how certain animals survive, how people become this and that, how her brother survived turning into one of the shade-like creatures. So this was definitely a catch-up book, and it's kind of a jumping on point for new readers, especially if you got that 6-issue trade. But overall, the story was okay for me. It didn't blow me out of the water. It's just trying to kickstart things up once again. They found this place that's like a drive-in theater. It's been overrun by the shade. There was people taken away. They have this formula in their hands, and they're trying to bring it to this particular city to where there's somebody that can solve this equation that can bring back the light. So that's the whole purpose of this book. And now that this city was overrun, the only way they can get their answer now is by confronting Blacktop Bill himself. And he is obviously that big mysterious villain in this book, and we're going to see how that turns out. How long does Noctera go? I don't know, but it was fine for getting things started once again, and now I think the story is going to ramp up once we get to issue 8. So guys, let me know in the comments below what you thought of Noctera this week. Was it not as solid as it usually was? Coming in at number 4 on this week's episode of After the Pull, we have Dark Knights of Steel issue 4 of 12. You might be a little bit surprised by this. This is always like my number 1 most anticipated comic, but this issue took a break from the main story, and it gave you a backstory of Bruce. You got to see how actually Jor-El and Martha like hooked up, and how Bruce was born, and you got to see how they got incorporated into the kingdom, and it was stuff like that, right? And there was a couple cool things that happened in that book, but otherwise that was basically the story. So here is some of the artwork in here, which is good. I always like the artwork. Here you get to see these two saving the kingdom from this erupting volcano. And it was a quite interesting story. You got Lex Luthor in here that finds this rock in the volcano that erupted. And I am going to spoil something here, so just letting you know that Lex Luthor becomes this version, or this sick and twisted version of the Joker, but he has the power of a Green Lantern ring, which I thought was really cool. And he was the actual demise of the Wayne family. So here we get to see him show up. And I thought that was cool, right? So that was kind of like your shock value of this particular issue. And I like seeing him combine like the Joker and a Green Lantern together. I thought that was pretty neat. But that was the highlight of the issue. The other part of the story was just this little back issue, or little backstory of how these two came to be and be incorporated into the kingdom. So that's really all it was. It didn't deliver on the main aspect of the story, and that's what I'm really into right now. Always cool to see, a kind of a back story, and hopefully it picks up in issue 5. Coming in at number 3, and the story's starting to actually get better. This is the Amazing Spider-Man issue 88, and maybe because Zeb Wells is writing this story. Now, the artwork in this book was not my favorite, and we do get the first appearance of Queen Goblin in this book, and I would have loved to seen her maybe with a different artist for her first appearance, but nevertheless, she looked cool. She sounded cool. She sounded menacing. She's like, I'm gonna beat your brains in, and she just sounded evil and dark. And I already like her better than Kindred. So, and I didn't feel like she was too much of a ripoff. And where she came from, how she was developed, was quite interesting. And I'm gonna tell you this, is that in that jar, when you were reading this book previously, there was this bunch of gook in it. Well, they wound up somehow capturing Norman Osborn's sins from Sin Eater, and they injected it into this particular person on who is Queen Goblin. And that's how they became so evil and sinful and all that other crazy stuff, right? Kind of weird, but it worked, right? And so the Beyond Corporation is the one that created Queen Goblin because it's good for them, where they have a hero and they have a villain, and that hero defeats the villain, and it's good for press, right? But they don't know that the villain was created by Beyond Corporation. It's like a setup, right? And so that's how I think how the UFOs were sent in previously to destroy Spider-Man or whatnot, or Amazing Spider-Man, or Peter Parker Spider-Man. But nevertheless, it was a good issue. And again, Ben Reilly is not Ben Reilly anymore. His memories are erased, and he's just very cold. He goes out and does the mission. Things are off with him. So I thought that was a really cool tweak in the story as well. You don't get the reveal of who Queen Goblin is, but I already know who she is, because based off of this cover, when it was solicited, it said right here in the corner where it says Marvel, Queen Goblin, aka so-and-so, right? But it's not on this one, though, of course. So they slipped up when they put that one in the solicitations, and people probably already know who she is, because otherwise, if you don't read carefully, you will not find out who she is in this issue. So pretty good book. I definitely recommend it. And if you want to buy this cover, this is a cool cover because it gives you all the little details of her weapons and how they work and stuff. So I felt that this book was definitely a recommend. It adds to the story and it makes you want to read more. So finally, I feel like Amazing Spider-Man is getting back on track, and being like Zeb Wells is the writer of this, and it's eventually leading into his own run. So great stuff here. Definitely a recommendation. Number 2 on this week's countdown goes to Sabertooth issue 1. This was an oversized issue. You paid $5 for it, but man, it was worth the read to find out like what happens to Sabertooth and where he's at in Krakoa and how he works, you know, inside of that place. The artwork in this book was actually really cool. It was very dark, gruesome, bloody, gory. Check out this page right here, this 2-page spread with Sabertooth just going to town on the X-Men. So when you're reading this, you're kind of just like, what the heck is happening in this book? Like, how is he doing all this stuff, right? And so you find out that story here. So let's start from the beginning. Right from the start, it gets you caught up in the story with Sabertooth right before he gets exiled to the belly of Krakoa. And it's awesome because his dialogue is like analyzing everybody, like Professor X. He's like, how does he see through that helmet? Oh, Magneto's a kiss ass. And he looks at, you know, all the other characters before he gets exiled. And then you get to see him at that point where he gets exiled to Krakoa. Then you find out what happens with him after that point. So what happens is we see Doug, who makes an appearance in this book and basically signs a contract with Sabertooth and says, listen, we can't free your body from here, but we can free your mind. Your mind can go and wander wherever you want. You can be whoever you want in your mind, but your body just can't be released. So he basically signs this contract, and that's exactly what Sabertooth does in this issue. You find out he's killing like all the X-Men, all the people that done him wrong in this entire time. It was so well done. But then he takes his mind into a completely different place, and he winds up creating something that wasn't in Krakoa before, which was hell. And now he's the king of his own hell in Krakoa, and there's other people that show up at the end of this issue. It was really well done. I never thought that this book would be written so well, and I was so entertained by it, and I can't wait to read the next issue and see what it has to offer. So really great stuff, very creative on how they did this. Definitely recommend Sabertooth. So number 1 on this week's episode of After the Poll, does it hold up? I don't know, we'll see, but you can find out my final top 5 comics of the week if you tune into my live stream that happens every Tuesday night at 10:15 p.m. Eastern time, where we talk about comic news, our top 5 comics. I do this with my friends. It's a great time, guys. I would love for you to be there every Tuesday. But this one goes to Batman issue 120. This book is so good, man. I love this story. Batman just got the piss beat out of him by Abyss. He got sliced open. He got blinded. He's trying to find out this mystery on if Lex Luthor is working with the Abyss or Batman Incorporated is working with Lex Luthor. Is it all a setup? Like, it's a complete mystery. He has all these questions. Nothing gets answered. But we do know that at one point in time that Lex Luthor had to deal with the Abyss, and Abyss like kind of abandoned him. So these guys wind up fighting each other, and Lex Luthor has this cool bat suit to fight him. And the artwork was pretty good in this book, right? And you get to see all the Batman Incorporated characters in this book. So great stuff. And in this issue, you wind up seeing Batman trying to get to the meat of what's going on here. So he has to go to the detention center where the Batman Incorporated crew is being held. And he's like, come with me, answer your questions. I need to find out what's going on. What's your deal with Lex Luthor? Blah, 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 blah. Okay? So at the end of the day, you wind up finding out, and this is a big spoiler. So in case you haven't read it, pause it, turn your head, whatever it is, that Batman Incorporated is working with the Abyss, and the Abyss is the leader of this crew, and they call themselves the Dark Batman. And Lex Luthor's trying to work with Batman now to stop this whole situation. So good, dude. I did not see that coming at all. But who is the Abyss character? I so want to know. This is a really good book. I had so much fun with it. When I got to that last page, I was like, oh, yes. And that's what a good cliffhanger is right there. Not where you read freaking Savage Spider-Man and there's like no cliffhanger at all, and you're like, well, what did I just read? You know, that was a horrible issue. This was really well done and made me want to say, man, where is Batman 121? Because I want to continue reading this story. So there you have it, guys. There are my top 5 overall, top 7 comics that I read so far in ranking order. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I want to know what's your favorite comic book so far this week. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell. If you guys missed what I picked up in my comic book haul this week, go ahead and click on this. And of course, guys, keep buying, keep collecting, and most importantly, keep reading those comics. Guys, thank you so much.